Welcome to the Razors Inc. podcast with your host, Jonathan Farini. A recurring subject on this podcast is movies and TV shows that are underrated and overlooked. And just how does a movie featuring two film legends, a word that is often overused but wholly appropriate here, possibly get overlooked? Pour yourself a drink, pull up a chair, and hear Jonathan's take on movies, television, and today, on the heels of last week's podcast about They Shoot Horses, Don't They? A movie where horses are actually central to the plot. Here's your host, Jonathan Farini.
In discussing my take on the Misfits, I'm going to channel the author Arthur Miller. I took a summer drama class at a junior college before going off to college. We were paired up and told to play any scene of our choosing. I chose Arthur Miller's A View from the Bridge. At 18, we have the audacity to go bold. So I rewrote a central character, essentially turning him inside out. There's a clue there for those paying attention, but it will come up again shortly. My takeaway from the experience was a keener understanding of Miller's writing, which helps me to interpret the Misfits. It was released by United Artists in 1961. It was not a hit at the box office and didn't garner any Oscars. Like a fine wine, it has aged gracefully and beautifully over time, becoming appreciated for the great film it is. Just bringing Arthur Miller to write, John Huston to direct, and Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable, Eli Wallach, Bonnie Cliff, and Thelma Ritter together in a film is miraculous. The subject matter of the film is both a reflection of the changing American West and how those adapted to it, but also an early advocacy of animal rights. Yes, you heard me correct. The film also depicts changing Hollywood from the studio system where stars towed the line to method actors who didn't play by the studio rules and chose to run free like the wild mustangs depicted within the film. A maxim of the Razors Inc. podcast: show people are different. You either get it or you don't. It's all right. I find it easier to refer to the movie as the Misfits, Miss-Fits, because at first nothing comes together. But by the end of the film, Miller has put the puzzle together, resembling a Remington painting. Opening credits bear no resemblance to a movie about the West. We find pieces of a jigsaw puzzle floating about seeking direction, a fit, so to speak, like the characters we meet. Modern font, abstract but simple titles are set against a bleak backdrop and seasoned with a music score by Alex North, who composed Spartacus, Streetcar Named Desire, Cleopatra, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, to name a few. We're left feeling uncertain about our journey, like a jigsaw puzzle piece, attempting to find its place within the puzzle called life, just like the characters we meet on and off the set.
Look, why don't you try it out here for a while, see what happens. You know, sometimes when a person don't know what to do, the best thing is to just stand still. I'll guarantee you'll have something out here you wouldn't find on every corner. I may not amount to much in some ways, but I am a good friend.
At 59, Clark Gable isn't Rhett Butler, but portrays a fiercely independent cowboy named Gaylord, who resists succumbing to a job with a wage. Gaylord watched the West of his youth long since pass, and he's reduced to hunting 5 horses inside the Nevada desert to sell them for dog food. A stallion and 4 mares in a desert previously populated by thousands of wild mustangs, and he resents it because it's a metaphor the Wild West of his youth is dead. Like 5 horses, there are 5 protagonists in this story. Arthur Miller at work, folks. Gable graduated from the old Hollywood studio system, which was crumbling by 1961. He's an old-school, learn-your-lines, show up to the set on time and deliver actor. A far cry from the method acting, late-to-the-set, self-medicating Marilyn Monroe, who, despite the reports of her difficulties on set, lights up every frame of this movie. Unfortunately, Houston resorts to an unnecessary focus on her physical beauty. See the ping pong paddle scene inside the bar with a close-up of her shapely ass. Houston didn't have a choice, I contend. The Suits hired Marilyn as box office bait. It's not lost on me. Marilyn had lost some of the sexual sizzle by the time she made this film, her final film. She died from an overdose a year after the film was released. The film was shot in beautiful black and white, which adores desert landscapes in 100-degree heat within the Nevada desert. Monroe's and Miller's marriage was on the rocks. Imagine working together, the stress. Monroe was in emotional turmoil. Houston talks about witnessing Monroe's emotional distress very sympathetically, and production was said to have stopped for 2 weeks while she was hospitalized. I'll bet Houston and Miller went to bat for her with the Suits. She was late to the set and sometimes didn't show, but I hear the cast members were sympathetic. Clark Gable didn't need work. He was a legend. However, Gable was the consummate pro and opted into a film written by the brilliant author Arthur Miller and husband to Marilyn, directed by the insurmountable John Huston, whose directing and acting credits are too lengthy to list. Do you think Gable might be concerned he'd get short-shifted by Arthur Miller or John Huston? Just the opposite. Gable delivers a powerhouse performance showing an old cowboy coming to grips with the new American West and himself with the help of Monroe's Rosalind.
You're a real beautiful woman. It's almost kind of an honor sitting next to you. You just shine in my eyes. That's my true feeling, Rosalind. What makes you so sad? I think you're the saddest girl I ever met.
You're the first man that ever said that. I'm usually told how happy I am.
Well, that's because you make a man feel happy.
He tries to kiss her, but she demurs.
I don't feel that way about you, Kay.
Well, don't get discouraged, girl. You might.
Gable looks like Monroe's grandfather and isn't a hero when we meet him. He's a broken-down old cowboy intent upon hunting 5 mustangs to sell them for dog food. Gable took on the challenging role outside of his Rhett Butler swashbuckling characters and went out on top, just as he did when he wrestled down the stallion, then cut it loose. Filming was completed 12 days before Gable's death at age 60. Gable played alongside the best in the business, including Monroe, Monty Cliff, Eli Wallach, and Thelma Ritter. Monty Cliff plays Pierce, who's not much of a rodeo contestant and friend of Gable's Gaylord. Monty's sensitivity and big heart are impossible to ignore. He tells Rosalind,
"You know, I can't figure you floating around out here like this. You belong to Gay?
I don't know where I belong.
I don't like to see the way they grind up women out here. Although I guess a lot of them don't mind, do they?"
It's Monty who is the necessary friend who provides Monroe's Rosalind the friendship, not sex, from a man which Gaylord and Guido can't provide.
Didn't anyone ever cry for you before?
No stranger. Last April 12th, I was kicked so bad. I was out all day and all night. And I was with my girlfriend and my 2 buddies. I hadn't seen her, and I haven't seen them since.
They left you alone?
Can I ask you something? I mean, I don't have anybody, you know what I mean? I could talk to.
This isn't the speak of an everyday rodeo cowboy and the type of a guy who'd be a friend of Gaylord. Monty is playing Pierce like he played Dr. Kukaritz inside Suddenly Last Summer. See my podcast. It's the flip side portrayal to the hackneyed tough cowboy, which makes Monty's Pierce so likable and necessary to the story. As I discussed at the onset, I changed the sensibilities of Miller's character within A View from the Bridge and achieved the same result as Miller did with Pierce. Monty would make only 3 more movies after Misfits and die 5 years after completing the film at 45 years of age. A broken man emotionally and physically from a disfiguring car crash. In this viewer's opinion, I never saw any disfigurement, Monty. Just acting brilliance. A 4-time Oscar nominee. Monty is a necessary character because he softens the sharp edges to Gaylord and the tough former bomber pilot named Guido, played by Eli Wallach. Guido flies a crop dusting plane and uses the biplane to hunt down the horses. He's lonely, bitter, and his home, which he began building for his deceased wife, appears to be a permanent work in progress, like an uncompleted puzzle. It's a metaphor for inner struggles stemming from the many bombs he dropped on people during World War II and remorse for leaving medical school for war. Losing his wife and dropping bombs killed him too. Think about this dichotomy. Do no harm.
She's crazy. They're all crazy. You try not to believe it because you need them. She's crazy. You struggle, you build, you try. You turn yourself inside out for them. But it's never enough. So they put the spurs to you. I know, I got the marks. I know this racket. I just forgot what I knew for a little while.
Eli and Thelma Ritter are consummate pros, even if not the leading man or woman. Thelma plays Isabel, who befriends Rosalind at the beginning of the movie as her landlady. She's a woman who's been around the block, lived a life, been in and out of love, and knows something about life and men. She's another puzzle piece seeking to join the mosaic of life, resembling a puzzle. She delivers. I'm surprised Miller and or Houston dropped her from the horse hunting scene. She would have added so much love, toughness, emotional support to Rosalind, and been a necessary foil to the cruelty of Gable's Gaylord and Eli's Guido. It was a missed opportunity.
Well, here's to Nevada, the Leave-It state.
The what state?
The Leave-It state. You got money you want to gamble? Leave it here. You got a wife you want to get rid of? Get rid of her here. Extra atom bomb you don't need? Blow it up here. Nobody's going to mind in the slightest. The slogan of Nevada is anything goes, but don't complain if it went.
That's no lie.
I even left my southern accent here.
Marilyn's character, Rosalind, is a puzzle piece not fitting in. She's a city girl. She's a woman fresh off a divorce and not in tune with Gaylord's desire to find and kill a rabbit who eats the lettuce inside a garden.
I don't want to hear it.
Honey, nothing can live unless something dies.
The brutality she witnesses watching a rodeo where bulls and horses are made to buck with a device called a flank strap is too much for her. Rosalind feels emotional pain similar to the physical pain suffered by Monty's Pierce, injured after being thrown.
You ever been outside Reno, Mrs. Tabor?
Once I walked to the edge of town. Doesn't look like there's much out there.
Everything's there.
Like what?
The country.
Well, what do you do with yourself?
Just live.
How do you just live?
Well, you start by going to sleep. You get up when you feel like it. You stretch yourself. You fry yourself some eggs. You see what kind of a day it is. Throw stones at a can. Whistle.
Marilyn's concern for animals is sincere. She wasn't acting. From the first scene with Gaylord's dog, the chemistry between Marilyn and the dog was natural. I'm convinced that dog was starstruck, but Monroe's appreciation of that dog's attention is sincere and lovely to watch. Monroe's Rosalind is traumatized by the hunting down of the Mustangs, and it's she and Monty's Pierce who release them from being tied down with ropes. You three sweet damned men. Miller's Rosalind was advocating on behalf of animal rights about 50 years before it was a thing. Marilyn would be dead 1 year after the film's release. It's ironic the wrangling and takedown of the Mustangs inside the film would never be tolerated today by industry standards, yet sympathy and rescue of the Mustangs is central to the story. Rosalind and Miller's message was ahead of its time. Arthur Miller brings us full circle at the end of the movie.
How do you find your way back in the dark?
Just head for that big star straight on. The highway's under it. It'll take us right home.
Stars in the sky, maybe like stars of cinema, are referenced by Guido, with a mention of stars' light reaching the earth long after the star likely died. He read it within an astronomy book. Does life imitate art? I see it time and again in these podcasts. Like the puzzle pieces of the opening credits, Miller leaves us no definitive answer about the future for Gaylord and Rosalind, except they're seated together inside the cab of the truck. Gable was reportedly Monroe's screen idol, and the Misfits was their final film. The irony is heart-wrenching. I'd like to think Monroe and Gable are seated together watching a movie or playing a scene together this very moment somewhere beautiful. This podcast is dedicated to the magnificent talent in front of and behind the camera. What a puzzle, which, come to think of it, whose pieces all fit together perfectly inside the Misfits. I'm smelling the sweet smell of pipe smoke, and I think Miller wants a word with me, so back to channeling with Arthur. Until I see you next time, please leave behind a soft footprint, and class is dismissed.
And I gotta disagree with Jonathan on Marilyn having lost her sizzle. In what would be her last film, I would argue that Marilyn Monroe was never more beautiful. You've been listening to the Razors Inc. podcast with Jonathan Farini. Be sure to check out Jonathan's collection of fiction at the Jonathan B. Farini Story Collection at jonathanfarini.com. There you'll find everything from drama to romance, something for every reader, including Jonathan's latest prose poem, King Tide, recently published by Rundalania Magazine. That's jonathanfarini.com, Farini with 2 R's, 1 N. Or drop an email to razorsincpodcast@gmail.com.